Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at Genesis Communications Network. I'm Vincent Finelli. If you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, our senior USA Prepares instructor and physicist. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning, Vincent.
Hey, Rick, I wanted to just give a quick update. I mentioned yesterday with Gwyneth. Gwyneth is in Australia, and brush fires are heading her way, and we're talking about, things to do. And I mentioned that we always have hoses, garden hoses, at the ready with brass nozzles at the ready. And we have hydrants all over the farm. So I said I would tell our class what hose I like. Now, if you look at farms class, you'll notice that farmers do not use those green garden hoses that have the nylon or rayon reinforcing in them. Farmers don't use those. Farmers use rubber hoses. And the reason they do is because they're the only ones that last. So I did the research, and I tried to buy the same kind of hoses I bought like in 1999 and a couple years ago. And so they used to be $20, $19.99, or $19.99 on sale years after that. Well, they were sold by Sears, and I'm going to tell you exactly what they are. And if you're going to get a rubber hose and you want for one that's flexible when it's really cold and really hot and can withstand the heat, this is it. Okay? It has a lifetime guarantee, which means nothing to me, because who knows what, the companies actually honor their warranties. I don't know. But I would discount it having a lifetime warranty, but I would count that it is a premium, top-of-the-line, best in its class hose. So the ones I bought 4 of them yesterday, and they were $35.99 at Ace Hardware. They had them. But online, it shows that Sears sells them, but Sears is out of them across the entire country. You can't buy them. You can't order them online, and there's no stock. You can't go to the store because they don't have them. So Sears is saying that they have them, but they don't. So I called up Westlake Ace Hardware in Springfield, Missouri. I talked to a gal by the name of Holly Collins. She's the head cashier, and I said, I'd like to buy 4 of these hoses. She looked up. She says, we have 4 of them. I said, great. I'd like to buy them. And she said, they're $35.99. I said, yeah, but they're on the internet at Sears for $26.99. Can you match it? She said, hold on, let me check with the boss. And the boss says, no, we're not going to go quite that low, but we will go 20% off. I said, okay, I'd like to buy 4 of them. So that's pretty close to the Sears on sale price, but they didn't have them. So she held them for me, and I went into the store and I bought them. And I was delighted. Now, of course, I bought them tax exempt because of for the farm. So I ended up paying about $110 total price for 4 of these. And here is the part number. The part number for Ace Hardware is 730689. 730689. Repeat, 730689. The Craftsman part number is 69602. 69602. And they are for, it says on it, premium rubber garden hose, 50 feet, 5/8 inch in diameter, lifetime warranty, limited. Well, lifetime warranty, but it's limited. And it says that it's ideal for use in all climates. And it's good for, I believe, minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit It's flexible at minus 25, which is impressive. And it's rated up to 165 degrees Fahrenheit. So I believe this is best in class. It has brass fittings on the end, heavy duty, and they're nickel plated. So that's the one. And if I'll give you Holly's number if you want to call. And she said you can order it and they'll ship it to you. So her number in Springfield, Missouri is 417-887-8601. 417-887-8601. Now, why am I talking about this? Because I want to make sure that I have these hoses, because I know that anything less is unacceptable to me. And I know that the one I bought in 1999 is just as good as the ones I bought a couple of years ago. So I wanted to have them everywhere. I wanted to have them at every faucet at the ready with brass nozzles. And I want to make sure water's not in them that freezes in the wintertime. So, Rick, that's my fire protection suggestion. Any thoughts about that?
You see, the problem has to do with geoengineering and what they've been putting in our atmosphere and now is coating every single tree in America. This aluminum oxide, when all the trees are covered with it now, and the flame, that if there is a fire, is so hot that even firefighters have never seen anything like it, because the aluminum is explosive. And now PG&E is turning off power in Northern California today because they simply cannot produce the quality of power necessary for fighting this stuff. And what does this all mean ultimately? Well, we've been sprayed by so many different people, and nobody has come forward with accountability of what's in the in the deployment of these sprays. Nobody has said why they're doing it. As a physicist, I'm sitting here at a loss. Why would they do this? And then I read about Australia and Gwyneth. And what that was about is that they want to put a railroad train track in a certain part of Australia, and they knew that people in that line would not agree to do that unless their property was worthless. And they did this with intent by setting fires exactly in the line of flight for where they're going to put the railroad track. Now, when you watch that going on in Australia as fires and what's happening in California, and then you realize yesterday that while all this impeachment crap was going on, they set in some new laws regarding our 21st Amendment, Agenda 21. I am telling you that our politicians are all corrupt, and there's something else going on here in taking over our society and our rights.
And the tie-in,
I can't put my finger on it, but it's coming from so many different directions. I absolutely feel encroached.
Mm-hmm. And the tie-in for us here at our farm, and the message that I've been trying to deliver, is that there's nobody coming to help you. You have got to.
No, you're on your own. And it will, as I've said, and Matt Stein said, it will be your neighbor that saves your life. It is whom you are in the immediate surroundings that will have to band together for survival. No matter what happens, whether it's a pandemic, an earthquake, nuclear radiation, an EMP strike, whatever, it's going to require something more than you are personally, individually equipped to handle. And it's going to be like in the movies where there is a barricade across the road into town, and what is your business in coming into our region? It's going to be just like that. And candidly, I thought about where would I best like to live? And the more rural, the better. there's less interest in controlling that part, and they will save that for the last. And so the more rural you are, probably the safer you are, no matter what happens. I hate to put it to you that way, but that's what my radar is suggesting to me. And I know I don't know. I'm not politically astute, but I can tell you there's something else going on right now that doesn't make any sense at all. One of which is, if you had known that Hillary Clinton was a pedophile or knew what she had done at Benghazi, would you still feel the same way about the Democratic Party?
Well, those of us who pay attention, those of us who read and study in the alternative or the independent media, those of us who do know that. But
it's the problem is you don't know what to believe anymore, because it all sounds bad. It all makes sense. It all feels like that's about the way it is. And yet there is always this underlying feeling of plausible deniability, like you don't have the full story, and if you did, you wouldn't feel the way you do. And when you realize that ABC, what has happened to our news media? Well, it's controlled by individuals that own it. And the elite have agendas that are quite different than the masses. They have a goal which is, for them, different than my goal and the way I want to live. Now, who would want to try and control someone like me? Why? And then you start to get angry, because this isn't right. And the privileged, like King George, whatever, Prince George, this is not right. There's things wrong here. And, I don't want to act and state out and start a movement, because, candidly, I'd probably be flat wrong. I don't know. But I certainly know for myself this is not where I want to go. I have friends around me that are still in that place where they want to make some money. Why? It means nothing. The more you have does not make you happier. It just gives you different problems to deal with. The banks are failing. I just posted on Facebook this morning. One of my fans sent me a thing about what is that bank across they're failing with insurances on your property, where they now require riders. And didn't you have that hazard insurance? It's crazy. And the banks are all now beginning to fail. And my guess is there's going to be a false flag in England or France, probably more likely in Paris, where the banks have a 9/11 and the banks begin to fail in Europe. That's probably the beginning of the real end up front that year. When that happens, you can presume the banks will all crash very, very quickly.
All right, we'll be right back with Dr. Richard Alan Miller. Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us, richardalanmiller.com. We're talking about the upper crust, if you will. Prince Andrew, headlines in Daily Mail. Prince Andrew met with Ghislaine Maxwell after the Jeffrey Epstein probe was reopened. So the Duke saw the pedophile madam in London, okay, and at a supercar rally. Paris Hilton was there. Chloe Green was there. So, he's been meeting with people after the Epstein probe. And according to what I just read this morning, the Queen just sacked Prince Andrew. And so he's been stripped of his salary. Now, what is his salary? Well, it's 249,000 British pounds. 249, not 250, not 251, 249,000. And why is it 249,000? Is that so it's less than $250,000? Is that why? But how much is that in USD? Well, that'd be $320,000. So the Queen is furious. It looks like the palace is in a worldwide disgrace. It's an abomination. And yet, so who are these people that hang around with who? Well, there's Bill Clinton. Bill Gates has been there. A whole bunch of names that you would recognize have been to the Epstein House of Horror. And yet it continued for years and years and years, and it was covered up by so many people. But now it looks like there's so much outrage that maybe a little bit of justice will be served, maybe a tiny bit. So from my perspective, as we've been saying for years, class, there's nobody to call. There is nobody to call. And there's nobody coming running to your aid unless you have developed those friendships at your local level. And you may not like all your neighbors. I don't like all my neighbors. I like a few of them. I really do. And those are the ones who don't have their hand out. Those are the ones who aren't saying, give me, give me, give me. Those are the ones who are not saying, hey, I need to borrow your backhoe or your bulldozer. I need to borrow, your equipment. Hey, I need you to do these things for me. If it's not a two-way street, it's not going to work. It might work in a very short run, like once. So you need to develop those friendships, but they're very, very hard to develop. And what we're finding out is that those people who are friends of ours, people we like and people we would like to spend time with and trust, they think in a very similar way. The people we don't get along with think that, we should conform to blue hair, green hair, homosexuality, and, it's all okay. So is that the way you see it, Rick, that, you like people who have the same values as you and don't like so much people who say, you know what, society is, it's getting worse, and the young people don't know what they're doing so much. But you know what, that's a sign of the times. We just have to get along with it. My answer is no. I'm not going along with it. Your thoughts?
I'm apologizing for being so negative this morning. I don't want to be like this. I would rather be very positive and upbeat. And I'm concerned, and I don't know what to do. I'm writing and I'm speaking like I am right now to give my opinion so that people listen to themselves and come up with their own opinion. Because at some point, we've got to stop this nonsense. And the buck stops here. It's like, if I don't draw a line, who's going to do that? And I've had enough.
Very interesting. Very interesting you said that, Rick. I'll tell you why. A few years ago, I said to Mrs. Finelli, I said, I spent a lot of time preparing for the radio broadcast. I spent a lot of time on the radio. How do you feel about that? And you know Mrs. Finelli, Rick. And she said to me exactly what you said. Somebody's got to do it. That's what she said. Somebody's got to do it. Now, I've talked to some broadcasters, and I talked about how many somebodies there are. And I said, my take is there's like only 100 of us left who are ringing the alarm. Used to be a lot more. We've lost a bunch. Stan Monteith, Joyce Riley. I mean, the list is pretty long and pretty distinguished. And those people are gone. They've died. And a lot of my dear, dear friends who I looked up to, learned from, trusted, a little older than I, have died. There aren't very many of us left, class. Rick, I was thinking about technology and how things have changed. About 15 years ago when we built our farmhouse in Missouri, both of my parents were alive, and my dad was in a car crash. A guy fell asleep at the wheel and ran into him head on at 55 miles an hour each. It was a horrific crash. And so our entire family took care of my dad. And so we built a kind of a suite at the end of the house for my parents. It was like their own area. And there was a bathroom with a walk-in, step-in shower. So I had a shower, 5-foot wide shower pan. And we'd help my dad get in there. And I thought, I better put wiring for the telephone in the bathroom in case I need to receive or make a call, because we didn't have cell phones. And so I wired the entire house. Most rooms have telephone jacks in them, network jacks, telephone jacks, coaxial cable. And the reason I'm mentioning this is I never use that jack in the bathroom for my parents. It just sits there. It's on the wall. It's for a wall phone, like a landline. And I was thinking about how just in less than 15 years, technology has changed so much. Anyone who is in the telephone landline wiring business is probably out of a job, because who needs a landline in their home anymore, right? Who would have their house wired for a telephone jack in any room? There might be one room, but for the most part, why? And if a person moves into a new house, do they call up the telephone company like we used to and say, hey, I just moved in and I'd like to get telephone service? I don't think that happens. They might say, I need internet, but do they say they want, telephone service? I don't think so. I think they bring their telephone with them. So we have really dramatically changed how we use technology. So what I'm saying is almost no need for installing landlines in houses, inside the house wiring for landlines, because of Wi-Fi. And then if you look at Wi-Fi, people are saying, at least in England, that 1 in 3 houses in England cannot access the internet in every room of their house. So 18% of the people in England have to move their wireless router, to get a better signal. So what that means is where they do get a signal, they're being blasted 24 hours a day if they're in their home. But yet people do that, Rick. They are willing to be blasted 24 hours a day by their own wireless signals, and by those of their neighbors, and by those overhead, and by television and radio transmission signals, and by the electromagnetic radiation of the refrigerators and microwave ovens and televisions and computers and. Rick, do you think that this is as dangerous as I think it is? Have we lost our minds?
We are damaging ourselves with our own technologies, because for every positive thing there is a negative thing. And like radiation, it's used in medical health. It's also to kill. It's a double-edged sword with everything. And so there isn't the balance that there used to be in terms of, I don't know, just why you would do something. There isn't the thought given to, methodical on why you would do it this way over that way. And today, most younger generation have no clue at all and don't even think like that.
Well, I was thinking about another part of this wireless environment. So some people will go and get their router installed by the telephone company, or they install it themselves and they just set it up, hook it up to either cable or to a telephone jack, or however they feed their signal, a dish antenna on the roof. And they'll get it set up, and then it really won't work in every room. And boy, it's terrible when it doesn't work in every room, right? So what they do is they buy another box. So they've got this transmitter blasting in their house, but it doesn't work in every room. So they get a thing called a signal booster. And that picks up the signal from the first router and blasts another frequency in the same house, so that they can get their Wi-Fi extended in their own house. So now they have not one, but two routers blasting away at them, or 2 router signals blasting away, which is beyond insanity to me.
Well, it's the importance of how important is it to have that device functioning here as opposed to there. That's why I would recommend that everyone have some kind of tri-field meter-like device to measure where the hotspots are in your own personal house and why you would sleep here, not there.
Mm-hmm.
You
Well,
know,
I'm looking
exposure to this stuff does have toxicity. There is an LD50 ratio to it. And most people don't realize that that's one of the reasons why our insects and our insect population has decreased maximally in just the last year.
I was talking to a lady who owns a relatively new car, a 2019, and I said, "So when you travel, do you listen to books, the equivalent of books on tape, audio books, or books on CD?" No, I don't have one of those. I don't have a CD player in my car because that's an option. But what's not an option is a Bluetooth wireless communication setup in the 2019 vehicle that will let the operator use the music or audiobooks on a cell phone, transmit them from the cell phone in the car to the stereo system in the car. So no need for one of those obsolete CD players in the car because it's all wireless. And I was looking at the news and I found an advertisement. So Black Friday is coming up, and boy, you can get all kinds of great stuff on Black Friday. But most of it, and I'm kidding, because what they're doing is they're saying, hey, you can get a 24-inch smart LED TV, $99.99, or you can get an electronic food digital scale for $8.95, or a cordless vacuum cleaner for only $81.21. Cordless vacuum. Let me say it a different way. A cordless vacuum. Class, a cordless vacuum? Really? Is that what you need? How about an electronic toothbrush? How about wireless earbuds? Because you can get them for 36% off, and you can stick them in your ear, and you don't need wires. Or you can get a JBL portable boombox for only $349.95, and that's saving $150. And you can, that's awesome because it has a built-in rechargeable battery, and it's wireless. Can you imagine that? This thing will connect to your phone, and you always have your phone with you, so you just take this. It looks like an old Stanley thermos. And it's JBL, which is James B. Lansing, top of the line, right? That's a great label. I use JBL speakers here at the house. Great label, but it's $250 for a cordless, wireless speaker system. So, or you can buy a robot vacuum cleaner. This thing just, hey, it does it all by itself. It just goes around the house. Or you can buy a lawnmower, an electric lawnmower, and you just turn this thing on and it just mows your lawn. I guess you have to go and pick it up if it starts to rain. But other than that, wow, what a great idea. I just can't believe it. And here's the whole point of this. People think that cordless equates to the same power as corded. And that is absolutely not the case. You cannot get, right now, you cannot get the same power, the same force out of a cordless device as you can out of a corded device, all things being equal. And I don't understand.
Lasting as long either.
Right. I was talking to some people that they bought electric chainsaws. Now, it used to be you could buy a WEN, W-E-N brand, corded electric chainsaw. So if you had light-duty jobs and it would make sense. But a lithium-ion battery that's $100 or $200 for an electric chainsaw that used to cost $39, so to me, that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And
I bought a chainsaw that's useless. I went to Bi-Mart and got a really inexpensive corded chainsaw, and I'm never, ever going to do that again. That's crazy. It's crazy.
Was yours corded? Did you say corded? It has a cord?
Yes, it has a cord chainsaw. Yeah.
And why don't you like that? Because it's too weak?
There's no power in it. I can't cut a log. It might do a limb, if I'm cutting a limb like I might with a hedge trimmer or a limb saw, but it isn't going to cut a log.
Right.
There's no way it'll cut a log.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need a couple horsepower to do that, and that's what a 2-cycle gasoline-powered chainsaw will do.
Or
and I know
even,
people.
Yeah, it just it's the changing technology is not better, and it's not more convenient. It would appear so. It's not.
I got a call a couple days ago from one of our instructors, and she's going to be on the air with us in a couple of weeks, I would say. And she was telling me about Morgellons, and she was talking about how if you take a black light and you shine it at your skin, you'll see all kinds of creepy stuff. So I said, hold on. So I went into the automotive shop, and we have black lights. And I'm going to tell you which one I have, class. I bought 2 of them on the internet, and they came as a set or a pair, and the brand name on them is Jow, Jow, Beam, Beam, Jow, Beam. And one of them is just a plain 2-cell, a AAA cell, little slim line, about the size of a Sharpie, with a clip to put in your pocket, just a regular flashlight. And we use that in the automotive shop. If we need to see something, we need to get in a little tiny spot, and we really can't get a bigger flashlight in there, we use that. And then with that came another one, which was ultraviolet. And it's same size, same as the Sharpie size. And so I aimed it at my skin yesterday. I couldn't believe it. I see all these little glow-in-the-dark, little tiny spots. What's going on? So, Rick, when we come back, would you tell us what is going on? I mean, I wash my hands, I wash my arms. I don't look greasy and grubby and homeless. What is it going on that I have all this stuff on my skin? Is it just me, or is it all of us? Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us, and we'll be right back talking about what's on your skin, what's around you, and what can you see with ultraviolet light. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is with us. So, Rick, I went to eBay during the break, and I just typed in UV flashlight, and you can get one that's kind of similar to the one I have. It's a mini little pen light, if you will, in ultraviolet, $5.99 shipped. I couldn't send something that size across. I couldn't send an empty package that weighed that much across the road for $5.99. But there it is. And I got to tell you, Rick, when I've shined it, in the studio I have an Oriental rug, and it's very light color, like a light tan. And so I shined it on the rug, and you see all these little specks of glow-in-the-dark stuff. It's creepy. What could that be?
I'm sorry?
So I shined this light, this ultraviolet light. I have a Oriental rug in the studio, and it's light colored. It's light tan. The background is light tan. It's got lots of colors in it, blues and reds and greens. I mean, it sounds terrible, but it's nice. But the background is mostly tan. And when I shine this ultraviolet light on, I can see little things in it that are glowing in the dark all over the rug. What could it be that I'm looking at? Is because the dog walks in here?
Well, there's all kinds of things on your skin. The first is a keloid. Keloids are scar tissue that continues to grow after the wound is healed. This is a very common thing, especially in older people and especially in darker skinned people. Moles and that kind of thing. There are differences in the skin. Now, when you look at your skin with long ultraviolet, I mean, that's a toxin because basically that's what causes skin cancer. It's the long ultraviolet. It damages the cell, causes it to become like a keloid, that continues to grow as a scar, beyond the scar tissue. It is like scar tissue, except that it becomes its own mutant cell. And sometimes this has to be removed by a medical doctor, surgically. I have today, I can feel all different kinds of cells on my body as I've gotten older. Some of them feel normal, what we call skin tags. Some are not. Some are mutations and are possibly cancerous. If allowed to spread, it might spread very slowly. If you leave them alone, they won't bother you. They just look a little abnormal. And as you get older, you have more of these, especially around the neck and earlobes, sometimes on the front of your chest, on your back, places where you don't spend a lot of time fussing with your skin. And, they talk about skin tags and warts and things. Now, with ultraviolet light, of course, this is going to bring out the abnormalities of these different cells because of the different bandwidths and the reflective coefficient of that. Now, beyond that, now we start talking about bacteria and just how much bacteria is, not even talking about germs at this moment where we have viruses and molds and yeasts, and they're all different, like mushrooms. They're fruiting here, and there's a little bit of itching there, and there's a liquid there, and there's a smell here, and there's a da-da-da there. The body is in constant motion, in change, and it is a habitat, not single-celled. That means you're going to have a whole bunch of different things going on. And when you start to look at it with different light, you're going to see. I had, by the way, reboot my computer. I cannot believe how bad my computer is acting just when I want to do something. It's as if it's got its mind of its own and knows when something's important to me and purposefully slows down. Does that mean I'm becoming a paranoid? I don't know. But
no, it doesn't happen just to you.
What's that?
You're not alone. You're not alone there. It happens to me all the time. My computer
like
locks up when I go to talk to
certain. Aware, or Google is aware and is slowing me down when I want to move faster than it decides it wants me to. It's as if I'm at war with something, and I had to reboot I just cold framed my computer and let it reboot itself. And at some point, I may have to reinstall and go back to an earlier version before all of these so-called updates continue to plague my computer. I've just
I don't let it update.
Recently had to take over control of my website because the people that were doing it were not doing what I needed done, and it was affecting my livelihood. And I now see how I have been channeled down into a single point, and then they take the point out. Amazon, for example, used to market 5 times what my website would. When I got rid of Amazon, now the only sales is in my website. And so what a more perfect place to attack me.
Now, hold that thought. Rick, you called me this morning, and you said, geez, we haven't had a chance to chat very much this week. And I said, yeah, it's ever since they started turning the lights off at 5 o'clock, it's really getting tough for me to get all the work done that I'm trying to get done. And we're kind of chuckling about that. And we're talking about it's getting darker. And with daylight savings time, I'm not exactly sure what we're saving, but it seems like there's not as much sunlight during the day for us to get things done. And I don't think I remember it being this dark this soon or so little light. It's overcast, dark, gloomy, not much light to get much done. Nobody wants to do anything because it's so gloomy out. And you were talking about the third eye, Rick, and how we are impacted by the lack of sunlight.
So the third eye was studied in the 70s. We were very interested in what its purpose and function was. Now, it has a number of purposes. But its primary one originally was to regulate the body to light changes with seasonal changes in the light. It adjusted the body for, colds and the types of runny noses that we would have to wash out bacteria, that kind of thing. And with artificial light, it atrophied. And it basically is one of the reasons why all your original societies that didn't use light bulbs or candles were basically driven by tattvic chides and your body rhythm, your biorhythms. Now, what's happening is that with daylight savings time, it has screwed up the inner cycles of a human being to such a point that it is now highly susceptible to diseases that would not have previously been available because of the body's own natural biorhythms, what's called biorhythms. Look it up. You'll see that there are a bunch of different cycles. Sometimes these cycles are in tune with each other, and sometimes they're out of sync with each other. And when they're out of sync, you're not as coordinated as when you are in sync with different biorhythms. And they each have different cycles, so they are sometimes reinforcing each other, and sometimes they're canceling each other. And to have a sense of that, it all comes down to light and the third eye, the biological function of the third eye. That is a paper I wrote in the early 70s that will be prominent in such things as the non-local mind and the mind's eye. The importance of light cannot be understated. That's why all your rituals of solstices and equinoxes were so critical in previous acknowledgments of changes in our seasonal world, and why living here was different than living there. Difference in the color of the woods and the natural dyes in the leaf as they get rigid, if they're deciduous or whatever, to fall from the tree. All of this was part of the body's ability to regulate itself and heal itself, literally. And what all of our technologies have done is moved us further from that. As we get further from it, our ability to heal with natural sources and mind's eye become more limited. And I'm writing about that in my current writings related to why we do CBDs, why we use microdoses of psychedelic mushrooms to improve our ability in healing. And basically, what's happening is altered states of consciousness, the laws of physics change. And how many of us go into many, many different altered states during a given day where the laws of physics change? And light is one of the the seasons of the moon, and why lunatic was a word that was used where people go crazy during full moons. One of the things you wanted to talk to me about, or somebody did, is China, and they're wanting to use a satellite to create an artificial moon so they can have daylight or light during darkness periods in China. And that's going to cause a great deal of problems, as I understand them, in natural rhythms of the body and what we call magic and the art of changing consciousness at will. This is going to take us further and further away from ourselves.
Yeah, and you mentioned virtual, and we have, I don't know how we got so dumb, but back in the early 1990s, people were talking about virtual reality. So cool. I mean, what's wrong with real?
Why they call this virtual? The Matrix is because this is most likely your television period where you've done a timeout and dropped yourself into time and space, or an illusionary place that is not real. Like virtual reality, the concept of consciousness and coming back into reincarnation and living different lives is a kind of technology that is our future. And to be able to drop out and have as many times as you want without it costing you anything, because time isn't really real. And to think in terms of lifetimes on Earth and reincarnation and the tunnel of light, this is most likely why they talk about the Matrix as a technology where you're plugged into something and you've dropped out. Now, how do you get back to yourself? That is most likely one of the primary purposes of why you're here right now. That
I'm a little confused. I'm here to find out how to get back to me. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And you try it this way, and it didn't work, so you'll have that kind of a parent. That didn't work. And you'll have this dog, and you'll have that. There is a movie, a Christian movie, called A Dog's Life, where it follows the life of a dog into 6 or 7 incarnations, where it comes out as a different dog with a different family, but with the concept of consciousness, like the Dalai Lama. It's a very interesting movie called It's a Dog's Life. And it demonstrates what consciousness and life as we call consciousness and awareness and, at this juncture, what it is and what it is not. And the other 9/10 of your cerebral cortex, the not I part of self, is the one governing everything. And consciousness is nothing more than a dream state. It's not real. And that is the current direction in physics right now. Realizing that what we are experiencing, there are literal dream states when you're coming out of sleep, lucid dreaming, that has more content to reality and importance to awareness than consciousness does. And our desire to hold consciousness is the single most important thing that there is, has to be lost in the forest and the trees. It's we're missing the importance, and light is a part of that whole process. And the third eye, there's a new movie out called Third Eye Spies, and about remote viewing. And I'm watching how the take on things are dramatized in movies, and I have to laugh because I was there to create that and have a completely different idea or relationship to that than what the movies might try to imply. It's all true. Anything you could possibly imagine is true, and even more. That is what made us God's favored.
So in that line of thinking, the climate change and the disappearing of plant species, there's some information on the internet right now that says climate change and human population growth. And it seems like climate change and human population growth seem to be going hand in hand, are putting about 7,000 plant species, plants, not insects this time, but plants in Africa at risk of extinction. And we're to blame for this.
It isn't a question of blame or fault as much as it is man has a responsibility for the thoughts he chooses to entertain. And until you understand that, you are still a child.
Okay, so the thoughts that we are willing to entertain, and not you, not me, not our class, but people like at General Electric and in Japan at the highest levels of government are saying, you know what, we should have some nuclear power. What are your concerns about what's happening in Fukushima?
You say stage magic is where, nobody can make you do something you don't want to do, but they can fool you by making you agree to do something silly just for entertainment. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, until you truly know who you are, you're at the whim of other forces out there, and some of them are malevolent.
Okay,
and so like the movie Malevolence in Walt Disney's the current movie Malevolence, is she bad or good? And the correct answer is yes.
Rick, I think I know who I am, okay? And so I'm kind of a guy that I've got things I've got to do, and I don't have a cell phone, and I don't have, one of these communication devices in my pocket. So if I'm on the tractor, or if I'm on the scaffold, or if I'm cutting down a tree, or if I'm working under or on top of a car, I'm not going to be bothered because I don't have that cell phone with me. I'm doing my thing. I've chosen that lifestyle, and now people are calling, leaving messages saying, yo, I tried to call you and you don't answer your phone. So I am distancing myself from the 24/7 world. Now, do you think that is a mistake, or do you think that's a... Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us. Richard, ALAN Miller.com, if you'd like to go to the website and buy his books. RichardAlanMiller.com. So, Rick, I've been distancing myself for quite some time now, years, from the 24/7 world. Do you think that that direction that I am deliberately moving in is a good or bad direction based on the technology that's surrounding us?
I think that it's a generational thing, and that your father and your grandfather did the same thing, and that I wouldn't want to be Gen X or millennial. I mean, really, their values and their way of living is completely foreign to me. Now, is that good or bad? It's both. It is different. It is a generational thing where if you did it this way, they're going to overreact and do it that way. Now, really, the correct thing is to integrate and find balance in all things, and to realize that, I remember, as a metaphor, my daughter worked in absolute. She was a Christian, raised as a Christian, and so, Daddy, I love this, and Daddy, I hate that. And I used to remind her that I'll bet I could find something she hated even more, that preferences were a better way of balance than absolutes. And that's the problem that we have with religion and science, and why there is Malcolm in the middle, the balance between the two. It is absolutely no longer Malcolm. We're going to call him today Malcoma. I mean, because what is happening is, Malcoma in the middle. We're missing the importance of what all saints through history have stressed: the importance of training the mind. Now, most saints out of India talked about bliss states and meditation, where you eliminate all thought. Concentration and meditation, again, are the absolutes on either side, and what you're really trying to do is find a balance between science and religion, between the right and left hemisphere of the brain, between soul and Nibiru, between the concept of cavitation as a way of looking at things. Space and time are not real concepts. What they are constructs of the way we choose to look at things, which makes us human, to be distinguished differently than a cetacean, a mammal that lives in the ocean. The concept of technology with a thumb and fire is quite different for a dolphin that uses sonoluminescence, blowing these little sonar bubbles as a form of cold fusion and pretending they're an art form, where they blow circles and play with them before they allow them to go up into the surface of the light and pop into, nothingness again. We do not understand yet what is really going on, and that's what the concept of discovery and the moment is all about. Trying to go from the profane into the sacred. I did not mean to make this a deep philosophical discussion as much as the importance of realizing that science and religion neither have the real answer. The answer is uniquely distinct for each of us and can only be found inside, not outside the body. And so to find fellowship outside the body, or to look at sciences of measurement outside the body, is part of the illusion of why most of us are lost and will never really, in this lifetime, have a clue of why we're here. And
Rick,
that
we're going into a break, and we've got Joe in Arkansas on hold. Joe, we will be right with you right after the bottom of the hour break. You're on Class with Dr. Richard Alan Miller. Class, Dr. Richard Alan Miller's with us. Joe in Arkansas, thank you so much for patiently waiting. You're on the air with Rick. Hey, Joe? You there? Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
5 by 5, yes.
Okay. Yeah, good morning, guys. I'd like to talk about the trees relating to consciousness and go back to what Rick was just talking about. He actually said some of the things I was going to say about, time, past, and future. And I wanted to ask him if he was familiar with Eckhart Tolle.
Of course. I know him personally, or did, yeah.
Well, I've just finished 3 of his books, and I liked them so well that I sent them out to friends and family. And it really helps you to get a grip of being present and realizing there's no future, there's no past, there's only now.
The moment, yes. And what you're trying to do is go from the profane, are we there yet, to the sacred, where it becomes timeless.
Correct.
That's Tolle also, by the way.
Okay. And Vincent, are you familiar with him?
With whom?
No, I'm not, but I got to tell you, there's not much that Rick doesn't know. That's for sure.
Well, I know a little bit about everything, but not a lot about everything. So there it is.
Yeah, I just like to say it really helps to stay focused of where you are in the now, and go into the trees and consciousness. I live off the grid. I'm out in the woods all the time, and this year, as you've noticed, Vincent and Rick, the leaves did not change color. They turned brown and fell to the ground.
Well, they changed color for about 20 seconds. But yeah, You're right. You're absolutely right.
And I have not heard anyone bring that up, that the leaves didn't change this year. So, like you talk about the zombies, everyone's unconscious. They're not conscious of where they are.
Not only are they not conscious of where they are, they have no idea why they're there. And the people, I was talking to Sunny Skidmore last night. She is an owner of KLID AM 1340, and she and I talk a lot, like an hour every night, while she's convalescing. And we were talking about how people don't know their jobs. And I'm now at the point where someone will say to me in a store, "May I help you?" And really, they don't want to help me. They feel that they're obligated to, or they might get fired if they don't ask so many people per hour, "May I help you?" And I'm now at the point where I'm saying, "Of course not. You have purple hair. Why would I want you to help me?" And I really mean that, because I look at what people are doing with themselves, and I think they are doing all kinds of risky things. If they are willing to paint their hair purple, what else are they willing to do? And why would I trust that person to even touch something that I'm interested in buying, let alone follow their recommendation? And what I'm finding out is if you want to really see how bad things are, just go to a paint department in any of the big box stores and ask some questions. Ask some questions about which paint is better and why. And which one is the best one? Is it the Ultra? Is it the Maximus? Is it the Super? Is it the Platinum? Is it the Gold? Which one actually of these labels is really the best? Is the bottom of is the cheapest one the one that says Platinum? Or is the cheapest one the one that says Maximum? Which one is it? Or is it the one that says Ultra? Because we've been twisting the language so much that we can't figure out what's what. And let me give you an example. And this is the kiss of death. So I'm going to do it anyway. I heard a radio commercial today that said, and by the way, none of the commercials that you hear on the radio surrounding USA Prepares or our instructors when they're on the air with me have been are part of USA Prepares. Not one commercial is ours. They are all either the radio station or the network's commercials. None of them belongs to us. We used to have 6 minutes per broadcast. I gave them back to the network so we could have more talk time. Okay, so I heard a commercial, and I'm paraphrasing, but I think this is really, really close. Quote, "In America, we have the right to succeed," end quote. No, we do not have a right to succeed. And I can prove it to you. I used to race cars. I didn't have a right to win. I didn't. I had the ability to try, but if the guy in the racing next to me was better behind the wheel, or better with the clutch, or better with the transmission, or had better engineering, or he had more thermodynamic advantage, I probably wasn't going to win. Okay, so maybe I had the right to try in many circumstances, but not every circumstance. But I did not have the right to succeed. So we have twisted our language. We do not have a right to succeed. I might want to have a really magnificent green lawn. I might want, if I lived in a development, I don't have a right to succeed to have a green lawn because I might not have the knowledge, nor the equipment, nor the ingredients to be successful. I do not have a right to succeed. And that's how we're twisting our language. And I object to it. I also object to people who know less than I do, and I'm not bragging, but I would expect that people in stores would actually know what they're doing. So when they ask if they can help me, now my question is, if they don't have green or blue or pink hair, my next question is, can I help you? Can you? Can you help me? Because I'm going to be really surprised if you can. I'm going to be really surprised if a person who works at a store knows more about the thing that I want to buy than I do. I'll be very surprised. I'm not bragging, but I do a lot of research before I buy something. So I pretty much know what I'm trying to do. I'm not there kicking tires, having some millennial who knows nothing advise me. Why would I do that? Why? I wouldn't. So I don't know if that answers part of your question or not, but there it is.
Well, back to what Rick said earlier, and you've heard me say this on your show before. We are on our own.
10-4. We are on our own. Yes. Exclamation point. And really, if I could count on one hand, the people who live around here that I absolutely trust, that would be a lot. That would be a lot. Now, I would expect that most of the people around here, I'm talking about in my neck of the woods, if I called them up and said, yo, listen, I'm stuck on the side of the road. If I had a phone, I would, I'd have to borrow somebody's phone to do that. But if I had access to a phone, hey, I'm stuck at, and I'm at this location. Can y'all help me? I'd be very surprised if more than two people would say, yeah, let me drop what I'm doing. I'll be right over. I'd be surprised. Now, my family would. Mrs. Finelli would. Our boys would. And a couple neighbors would. But for the most part, I'm on my own. I really am. And so is everyone else. We just don't realize it. And if you stop paying the police, they're not coming. If you stop paying the fire department, they're not coming. And if your neighbor doesn't think it's in their interest to help you, they're not coming either.
Well, I want to thank Rick for, his conversation with consciousness, and also, you had Sonny Skidmore on, and that lady has spirit and inspiration, and that's the kind of things that help us.
I want to comment about that, but yes, Sonny, she's 90 years old, and her legs have been cut off. And I'll tell you what I did. I'm gonna open the kimono because I'm kind of annoyed about this. We used to be on her radio station, and we were replaced with another guy. And they don't like this other guy. They really don't, because he's perceived as a cheerleader. Yeah, go, bye. That's what he does. And they don't want that. They really want the kind of broadcast that we do, teach people how to do things. So there is another guy on her radio show who I know. And all I wanted to do was ask him if he would mind just taking that 1 hour broadcast that we did with Sonny Skidmore and just play it verbatim on his show so that the radio station listeners of KLID, AM 1340, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, could actually hear firsthand about Sonny Skidmore and the challenges that she has right now. It's an uphill battle. It's unbelievable. And do you think after 2 phone calls and 2 messages that other broadcaster would call me back?
Wow.
I've given up. I have given up. I can't get another guy whom I know to even call me back and say, oh man, that was terrible what has happened to her. Would it be okay if I took your broadcast and rebroadcast it on KLID? He's there anyway. He's on their station. All he has to do is plug it in. I can't get a call back from him. And if I lose my temper anymore, I'll even tell you who it is. So here we are. And let me tell you the rest of the story about Sonny Skidmore. She called me 2 days ago. And she said, Vincent, somebody broke into my house. Broke the window and broke into her house. We don't know what's been taken yet because Sonny Skidmore is unable to get to her home. And while they were breaking into her house, they stole her outside air conditioning unit. They stole it. What I'm talking about is they took what I believe is her outside heat pump. I'm talking about something that it would take 2 guys to lift up and carry. Cut the refrigeration lines, cut the electrical line, carry it away. 2 guys stealing that for what? Probably copper. Maybe they get $20 or $30 for it. What's it going to cost to fix it? $4,000. That's what they did to Sonny Skidmore. 90 years old, had both of her legs amputated above the knee. And the only thing I can think of is Lucille. And those of you who have watched The Walking Dead know exactly what I'm talking about. Lucille. It's a Louisville slugger wrapped in barbed wire.
I'm going to get off here, guys. Make it a great day. See ya.
Thank you, Joe. That's the Sonny Skidmore update. It's an absolute outrage. And if you're not angry, something's wrong. We'll be right back. I've got some calls on the call screen, but I don't know who's calling. So, welcome. You're on air with Dr. Richard Allen Miller and me, Vin Finelli.
Vincent,
Hello.
this is Robert in Kansas.
Hey.
Can you hear me? Hey.
Yeah, I can. Sure.
Dr. Miller was talking about the Matrix, and so he had some questions, and I wanted to call in and try to help him out. Basically, what it is the deception used to control our consciousness. And one simple way to think of it is school. When you go to school, you're taught a certain set of facts, and that then the controllers can use that deception to manipulate you later in the way you think. That's government.
Rick, any comments? Rick, any comments about that?
Well, yes, I can use all the help I can get. But I'm calling the sheep black. Imagine what color I am. I know that I don't know, and I know that you don't know, and I know we don't know, and all of us thinking we can help each other when we can't even help ourselves is an illusion that needs to be addressed by each of us, including myself. And I know.
Rick, I think what Robert is saying is that we were told that the war of northern aggression was about slavery. I think that's the kind of thing that he's talking about, whereas it was not about slavery until Abraham Springsteen Lincoln figured out that he needed to make it about slavery toward the end of the war of northern aggression in order to have the North prevail. I think that's the kind of thing.
Have our ideas on how to do it, and I'm going to suggest that there are as many different roads to Rome as there are human beings.
Robert in Kansas, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to go. I've got another caller, and we only have like a minute left. Thank you for calling. Don't be a stranger. Feel free to call in anytime. Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Vince.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, New Hampshire, welcome.
Hi, Vincent. Hi, Dr. Rick.
Hey.
Two quick things. One is, did David Paulides call you? Because I sent him a message with your personal telephone number, and I didn't want to take a chance of trying to call you at night. No. Okay. But at least I just want you to know I did what I said I'd do. The other thing I was going to say, and I know, is you see things shaping up. When it hits, it's been hitting us by degrees. Now, it's either going to strengthen us or it's going to weaken us. And wherever you are when that thing hits, all your life choices, moment to moment to moment, is going to ultimately lead up to your destination and your, how shall I say, your karma, if for want of a better word. So like I say, I can see what's coming down the pike, and no matter what suffering you're going through, you, Dr. Rick, Vin, all of the inconveniences, what we're seeing, if we handle it the right way, I'm going to recommend something. It's free, antidoteforall.com. You just sit quietly, and it's like it'll clear your mind in ways that it is very simple. And like I say, but you have to prepare yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually. You have to. Otherwise, you're going to come to, let's just say, an ending that you may not like.
Rick, any comments?
No, he's absolutely correct. I understand precisely what he's suggesting. That's why training the mind is so critical, and why all saints in history have said that. All.
Rick, I've got a question for you that while George is on, George may want to hear the answer to this. The orientation of one's bed where one sleeps at night, north and south, east and west, does it make a difference?
I have heard that if you sleep in the northern direction, I heard that babies will naturally try to align their bodies northward. What do you think, Dr. Rick?
I agree with all of that. There are forces that we subconsciously acknowledge, but really have not yet articulated because they have not any kind of word to describe it yet.
Okay, in the bedroom at the farmhouse where Mrs. Finelli and I sleep, we had it oriented east and west for a short time. I didn't like it at all, and I moved it into another room, and the headboard is north, the footboard is south, and we sleep all night. And we'd wake up in the middle of the night, and we didn't know why. We didn't like it. We didn't like it, but just changing the orientation seemed to change the sleep pattern. And is that what you're saying, George?
Yeah, and try not to put your headboard up against a plug where you have an electricity generator, because that's going to affect things.
Absolutely. Rick, any final comments?
You both have pointed out very important things. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Dr. Richard L. Miller, thank you so much. George in New Hampshire, thank you very much. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.